What deck do you think maxes out your aura when you play Cardfight Vanguard? Right now, for me, it's definitely the Tasuku Jackknife deck from the new Future Card Buddyfight Collab set. Tasuku and his buddy Jackknife Dragon don't just play the game, they fight crime as part of the Buddy Police, taking down criminals who misuse their buddy monsters. But everything changes when Wolf appears out of nowhere, pushing Tasuku and Jackknife to their absolute limits. And that's exactly what this deck feels like in Vanguard. Fast tempo, clean aggression, and some board control. So let's get into it. Here's my complete Tasuku Jackknife deck profile. Starting off with the ride deck, we have our flag, our grade 1 Tasuku, our grade 2 Tasuku, and our grade 3 Jackknife. This is the ideal ride deck you want to run for this deck just because this is obviously your flag that gets you the Buddy Fight gauge, which allows you to charge and draw, and Buddy Call, which we will call our Jackknife Dragon, into our grade 1, which when it's placed, you can check the top 7 for one card with Jackknife unit or order and add it to your hand. And then you have our grade 2, which when it's rode upon by a grade 3 Tasuku card, which our grade 3 is, you can soul last one and choose a card with Jackknife in its name from your drop and put it into your hand. This is obviously the ideal ride deck for this deck, I think, just because it sets up all of your plays. Our grade 3 has the skill of continuous all of your recards with Jackknife in its name, get plus 5,000 power. Active on the opponent's turn too, so it's easier to guard some of your rearguard attacks, as well as take advantage of the soul guard abilities. And then when it attacks, if it is the first battle that it attacked this turn, counterblast 1, choose one of your rearguards with Jackknife in its name and stand it. This is really good just because your Vanguard does restand in this deck, so you can take advantage and get 4-5 attacks with this deck as a whole. And then it sets up its own skill because it combos with itself, because you could pay a gauge and then search your deck for up to 1 unit card with Jackknife in its name, call it to rearguard without paying its call cost, or put it into your hand. If you put it in your hand, shuffle your deck. You can also add from the drop zone, but keep in mind that it has to be a unit. And then we have our Buddy Monster, which Jackknife Dragon is a classic for the Tasuku deck just because of how it is in the anime. And then has a call cost of paying a gauge. And then with its rearguard skill, you can pay a gauge to search your deck for up to 1 card with Jackknife in its name and place it on top of this unit. So all the cards in this deck, the grade 2s basically, all have Jackknife in their names, and you can combo off with them to get off various effects. That makes Jackknife the ideal buddy. When you buddy call, instead of healing a damage, because that would be broken, you can countercharge 1 with the skill when you're at grade 3. So obviously with all the buddy calling and Jackknife combos, there's a lot of cool plays that you could get off in this deck. Most notably, 5 or 6 attacks, potentially 7 every turn. So leading into our grade 3s, we have 3 Persona Rise. This of course is mandatory for most decks. And 2 Jackknife Gold Ritter. This is the whole card that makes this whole deck go. So it's an order card that cannot be played, but you could equip it to your Vanguard, similar to Bob Sagura. So if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Tasuku to save and your opponent's Vanguard is a grade 3, you retire a rearguard with 2 or more Buddy Soul with Jackknife. So most of your cards get you that Buddy Soul and Soul Guard ability. Note you can't Soul Guard it. And then you equip this card to your Vanguard, and it turns your Vanguard into a 20k base, and it gets triple drive for the rest of the game. This is also active on your opponent's turn, which makes their attacks easier to defend because your Vanguard's 20k. And then at the end of battle that the unit attack with this card was armed, you can stand it. So, and its drive becomes 0. So it essentially gets you your 4th attack that way. And then with Tasuku skill, you can counterblast 1 to restand something. And it gets you your 5th attack that way as well. So Gold Ritter, of course, is really good, but we only play 2 just because you can search it out pretty easily with this card right here, Jackknife Gift. So you can play this if you have a card with Tasuku in its name, and then you choose a unit card with Jackknife in its name from your drop, and then put it into the Buddy Soul of one of your rearguards. So this is really good because you kind of guarantee it with Jackknife Dragon when you Buddy Call it when you're at grade 3. And then if you paid that cost, you can search your deck for a Gold Ritter or Drop Zone and put it into your hand. And then if you're already equipped with Gold Ritter, this card has really good utility in being able to charge itself to become a gauge, just because you can play it, put it into your gauge if you have a Gold Ritter already armed to your Vanguard, and draw a card. So really good way to maintain advantage with all those cards right here. Next, we have all the Jackknife cards. So we have 2 Dispersal, 2 Thunderstorm, 3 Burn Energy. These are what I like to call all the Jackknife evolutions that this deck can provide, just because each one does a different thing. So here are all the Jackknives. Each of them has a different call cost associated with them. This one is just putting it on top of Jackknife, this one's just putting it on top of Jackknife and paying a gauge, and this one is just putting this on top of a Jackknife and paying a gauge. This is the only one that's essentially free, but each one has its own skill to kind of take advantage and unlock the power of your deck. So starting off with Thunderstorm, which I think is a really key card for this deck for helping you maintain advantage and clear your opponent's board. So at the cost of paying a gauge, choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards, retire it, and if your Vanguard is armed with Gold Ritter, it also gets plus 10,000 power, so helping you hit numbers. On top of your Vanguard skill to also give 5,000 power to it, it can hit 25 unboosted in most situations. And then we have Jackknife Burn Energy, which I think is also a really good way for this deck to maintain advantage. So when it's placed on rearguard, you can counterblast one, draw a card, and then put the top card of your deck into your gauge face down. And then you can choose a card from your drop zone and put it into your gauge face down. And then if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Tasuku in its name, it gets plus 5,000 power. So this card's really good for helping you maintain advantage, like I said. And then you have Jackknife Dispersal, which I think is the finisher, kind of key rearguard for the deck. I only really play 2 just because you can search it out. Like I said, this deck has a lot of searching. So you can pay a gauge, put it on top of a Jackknife. And then if its Buddy Soul has a card with Jackknife in its name, it gets plus 5,000 power. And then when it stands by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Tasuku in its name, which your only grade 3 Vanguard that will activate is that card, it gets a critical. And then if its Vanguard's armed with gold rare, it gets an additional plus 5,000 power. So it kind of scales pretty well to where when your opponent rides grade 3, it will gain extra power to hit unboosted as well. It will essentially be 25k unboosted when it restands when your opponent's at grade 3, so it could get around triggers as well as other stuff. And all of these all have the Soul Guard ability. So when it would be removed from rearguard circle, you could get rid of a Buddy Soul instead. Buddy Soul is essentially the card underneath it, which helps power up your Jackknife for later stages of the game. And then we have 3 Jackknife Dragon. This, of course, is our buddy monster, but we also want to max out on the deck just because it is a key starter card for our deck, being able to pay a gauge and then search your deck for essentially anything that you need depending on the situations. But just because gauge is so frugal sometimes, we play 1 Jackknife Berserker. I like the 1 vanilla in this deck. This is the tech that I saw from Twitter, recommended to me by Nirvana Vivster from the Trickman's deck. Jackknife Berserker I think is really good just because it doesn't have a call cost associated with it, and it's a Jackknife in its name, helping you rush, or just if it's a free rearguard that you could call late game, it's really good too. Then we play 1 Twin Cast, just for defenses, everybody knows what this does. And then heading into our grade 1s. These are also really good maintaining advantage cards, Jackknife Baby and Circle Knife Dragon. So Circle Knife Dragon has this really cool skill that you can retire it and choose a card with Jackknife in its name from your drop and put it into your hand. So it essentially gets you your Jackknife Dragons back is how I like to use it. So you could combo into your other pieces later, just because Jackknife could search from the deck or drop to get any Jackknife that you need for the situation. Especially if you're running low on resources, you can grab Burn Energy again. And then Jackknife Dragon Baby has this really cool skill of not just being a 13k booster because it does have Jackknife in the name for your Vanguard Tasuku, but drop zone when your rearguard with Jackknife is placed with a different card name, you can Soul Blast one and call it to the rearguard of the same column. So it is a 13k booster truly with that skill, as well as kind of a good ride deck discard target. And then for our Blitz Orders and Sentinels, we have Dragobond for our grade 1s. So you choose one of the following, choose one of your Vanguards and get plus 120k for the battle, or you could do the secondary effect, which choose one of your rearguards until the end of the battle, it cannot be hit, and if your damage zone has no face-up cards, you can countercharge 1. So it's really good for that utility, as well as kind of protecting your Jackknife rearguards, which is really good for this deck. And then we have 4 Thunder Knight's Halberd Dragon for the Sentinel. Just because this is a Blitz order and I find myself actually drawing into it a fair amount, I actually took out the Elementaria and Blue Dragon Shield, which I do have right here. You guys actually saw me pull this card, which was really cool, for this 4th Halberd Dragon, so I think it's really good. And then we have 2 of the impact cards, Dragonic Punisher. So it cannot be played, it can only be resolved once per game just because it is an impact card. So hand, at the end of your turn, if you have a rearguard with Jackknife in its name, you can counterblast 1, discard this card from your hand and play 2 gauge to restand one of your rearguards and attacks your opponent's Vanguard. This of course is really good with your Jackknife Dispersal, being able to swing with a bunch of crits at your opponent's face, and sometimes it can catch your opponent off guard because especially if they don't drive check it, you can hold this until the time is right and you have the gauge to pull this off to get off your 6th attack for the turn. This also works really well with our Overtrigger. So I'm playing the Red OT, I actually don't have one so I'm proxying it right now, just because you could restand your Dispersal and attack for 100 million with crits, so I think this has really good synergy with this deck over the Buddyfight trigger. And then speaking of triggers, we play 7 crit. This is the one that I'm still testing to try and figure out something a little optimal. This card could also go into our Buddy Soul, so it kind of helps you with the synergize with the deck a little bit. This one gives plus 3,000 power. Most of, if not all of your triggers are order cards as well that you can play, except for kind of the generic ones. So this draw is the 10k draw, and then the Soul Front. I like the Soul Front in this deck just because Jackknife Baby uses Soul. So you can always take advantage of that skill if you put this in, and you just call Jackknives every turn. And then we have 4 Green Dragon Shield. So Green Dragon Shield is our heal trigger. On top of just being a 15k shield, when it's placed on Guardian Circle, if your damage zone has no face-up cards, you can discard a card and countercharge 1. So this deck doesn't necessarily have any major countercharge outside of the Buddy calling, so just having the Green Dragon Shield as well as the Drago Bond to countercharge for you is not bad at all. Now that we got the deck profile out of the way, let me show you guys how the 6 attack combo works with this deck. So here's how the 6 attack combo with the Jackknife deck works. This is kind of the ideal field setup that you want to have, just because all of your effects and stuff will activate, and your Jackknife babies will be 13k boosters for your opponent to have a hard time defending your attacks. You also want to have Dispersal on the field just because the critical pressure I think is too good. At least 2 gauge heading into your battle phase, you can get off Dragonic Punisher, as well as Gold Rare to get the maximum effect of your cards so you could triple drive. So usually what I like to do is I try to start with this first after with its skill boosted, just to kind of see where my opponent's hand is at and get him to take that force damage, because usually going into this turn, you kind of get your opponent to 3 or 4 damage and you can kill them. So we start with that for attack number 1. And then sometimes I like to go here just to kind of bait them, see what's in their hand, and just kind of get a better idea of how I'm attacking. Because if my Vanguard attacks them and they're at 4 damage, I'd be more inclined to put the critical on my Vanguard, just so they have to block both the restand from Dispersal as well as my Vanguard, or just put all effects on the Dispersals to make that attack more threatening, so when it stands with the impact, it's lethal times 2. And then I attack with Gold Ritter for the 3rd attack. Counter plus 1, stand this, it'll gain the critical. And then we drive check. See? Critical. So if my opponent's at 4 damage, I usually like to give the critical to my Vanguard power to Dispersal. Obviously, like, this order could change depending on whatever scenario you're in, but after the battle, it will restand and its drive will become 0 because of the Gold Rare effect. And then this will be attack number 4, attack number 5, and then you declare final phase. Dragonic Punisher, pay 2 gauge, restand this card, and attacks your opponent's Vanguard for attack number 6. If you get the over trigger, you obviously want to give it to the Dispersal, so you can do attack 6-7, 6-7. But yeah, neither here nor there. We didn't check it, of course, in this explanation. But yeah, that is how you kind of do the 6 attack Jackknife combo. So that's it. That's my Jackknife deck. I picked this deck with the Buddy Fight with the help of people from my locals, so I really want to say thank you to them to help me finish this deck day 1, as well as kind of get a lot of the testing done to kind of build an optimal list that I find myself playing and being comfortable with. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.